Yes, indeed, folks, you're listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. So many requests to sing that silly, silly rating song. Shall I do it at the end of the show? Live performance? I managed to drive away, I think, at least half of my subscribers, so maybe doing it live might drive away the other half. So, yeah, I think we could possibly arrange something along those lines. Yes. It's disturbing, isn't it? Right. Let's get on with it, shall we? What is going on in the world of Warcraft at this moment in time? Well, there have been a few changes over the past week in the beta, one of which you may have also experienced on the PTR. The PTR is up, so you can test some stuff. That doesn't mean you can test all of it. It's stuff like talent changes and things like that that are coming in the 4.0 patch notes. You can test that on the PTR right now, but the most of it, no, you can't test that, which, I suppose that kind of sucks for some people at any rate, but you're just going to have to wait. Patience is a virtue, ladies and gents. Beta and PTR are not the same thing, as much as some people would wish otherwise. Okay. So, one of the major changes is that you get experience from gathering nodes. What do I mean by gathering nodes? Well, gathering nodes are herbs and rocks. Yes, mining and herbalism. They are not skinning. They are not fishing. And they are most assuredly not archaeology, which is actually kind of disappointing, but whatever. We're going to go into whether or not this is a good idea, but first I would like to read from the Booketh of Whining, Chapter 2, verses 5 to QQ. Now, what do I mean by the Booketh of Whining? I am, of course, referring to the forums. So let us sit in silence for a moment and venerate its holy pages and the words that are said upon its hallowed ground. And Bad Dandy in the guild is a living legend on Alexstrasza, US. Him of the prophet, him of the holy word, did say, was reading up at MMO Champs today, while servers were down and saw a blue post stating they are considering giving XP to characters as they gather from nodes. Seems to be ATM, just mining and herbs, give upward of 2.4k XP per node. Now that sounds a little bit like an Elcor. We could do it in plain song form, I guess. Having been in a guild crafter Dominus since vanilla, I find this to be completely unfair. To characters who would be unwilling to drop their Sancti Dominus Spiritus, their current professions, to gain this huge resource of bonus XP. I can't even imagine how people who are going to try for their Realm First 85s would feel about this kind of thing. I said that this should not be put into the game for any reason, and I hope many of you would feel the same way. Right. Okay. Excellent. Fantastic. I would hope this isn't put into the game for any reason, no matter how good the reason is, because I'm a closed-minded idiot. Jesus. It's so dumb. Okay, let's look at his rationale, shall we? Let's look at his rationale for a second. Right, okay, so this is one of... There are a few ways to identify a terrible argument. One, it's posted on the WoW forums, so you can assume as a default position that the argument will be terrible, because those capable of making a rational argument have long since left to go to a better forum, because it is a waste of time trying to make a rational argument on the WoW forums, because it will offend somebody, it will start a flame war, and then you'll probably get banned for pointing out just how dumb the offended person actually is. So, you can assume, as a default, until proven otherwise. Now, this is an establishment, yeah? This is an objective fact. So what you need to do in order to prove otherwise is to challenge said objective fact with actual evidence. So you can assume that this guy is an idiot, because he's posting on the WoW forums. Not only that, but he started a post on the WoW forums, and in his title, he has an exclamation that is paramount to a petition. Say no to gaining XP for gathering, and also to the rights of blacks and women. Yeah. So, the second point that you can see in this post that makes him an idiot and his argument completely invalid is the fact that the majority of his argument comes down to the fact that I've been a guild crafter and I didn't get this before, therefore nobody should get it after the fact. The third point is the lack of actual fact and complete distortion of reality that you tend to find in most of these posts on the WoW forums, because, like YouTube, the WoW forums also have a reality distortion field. Now, there are various examples of the YouTube reality distortion field, which include the translation of we to I. So, say if somebody says we think, that actually means I think. It is a little bit of a different language. It takes a long time to really learn how these idiots actually think, or whether or not they even do. I'm not sure if it could be classified as thought. I think it's more of an accident of the brain, a misfire of neurons that is blurted out onto the keyboard with no thought or consideration as to what it actually says. An accident. Yes, a foolish mistake, a mishap, as it were. But in this case, what we have is the WoW Forums reality distortion field, and the reality distortion field there is that they believe that subjective, selfish reasoning actually means a good argument. What they also think is that, say, facts like the fact that you get very little experience from actual gathering, and it is only designed to compensate you for the wasted time of wandering over to the node as opposed to farming. And by farming, I am talking about mobs and quests, of course, for experience. They actually believe that through the lens, the creepy, murky lens, the dirty window pane of the WoW Forums reality distortion field, that it is a huge resource of bonus experience. I have tried, at level 80, to mine a node of copper. Would you like to know how much experience it got me? 5. Yes, 5 experience. Now, of course, it goes up and up and up, but only when you get to the highest level are you getting 2 to 4k XP per node, if anything. Now, I'd also like you to bear in mind, of course, that the experience that you gain from mobs these days is a lot higher than that, and I have got 8 to 9k from killing a single creature in the past. So, really, this is something of a non-issue. Now, he then goes on to say, I would say that this should not be put into the game for any reason, and this is the fourth reason why this argument is garbage, because it very clearly shows that this guy is a closed-minded bigot. He has no idea what he's talking about, and will refuse, indeed, to entertain any other ideas other than his misinformed, dumbass perception of how this actually works, which is, of course, incorrect. Now, you might wonder how exactly it's possible to be so wrong when you have only used about 200 words in your terrible original post. And the answer to that is, quite simply, that these people are not of the human race. They are some kind of subtype. A subgenome, as it were. Perhaps they are descended from the, as we thought, wiped out Neanderthals. I would imagine that actually 70% of the internet has been descended from Neanderthals, considering the idiocy I read on the forums, and on anything else in general on a daily basis. But what I will say is that this guy is totally wrapped up in his own reality. And here's the actual reality of this, folks. The actual reality is that I suggested something like this back in September. I made a big post on the matter, and it was called the alternate leveling system. It was called Total. Yes, indeed. Total leveling experience. And the idea being that you could level from basically anything. And everything that you did, every piece of time that you invested in your leveling experience, whether or not it be PvP, PvE, crafting, raiding, exploration, etc., should be rewarded. And as it turns out, that is what they have done. And this is the latest implementation of that idea. Now, I'm not arrogant enough to say, yes, I'm actually saying that. I am not arrogant enough to say, I'm arrogant enough to say basically anything. But what I will not do is fall prey to the same ideas that are infecting the WoW population, in that I believe that Blizzard actually gives a damn about what I have to say, and that my opinion is somehow more golden than others. Now, all opinions are pretty much terrible. Blizzard knows this, and they are smart enough to come up with ideas on their own. It just happens that a good idea may also be thought of by Blizzard and may be implemented in their own way. So, in this Total Leveling Experience post, which you can read if you so desire, I'll put a link in the show notes for you, or you can just go find it. It's one of my old blog posts from back in September last year. And what I said was, everything should be rewarded. So, if people like to explore, they should be rewarded with experience for that. If people like to PvP, they should be rewarded with experience for that as well. And as it turns out, a lot of these have been implemented. 1, experience for PvP. That has been implemented. That was implemented a couple of months after I put that blog post out. And now we also have experience for exploration. It's been boosted. It's actually better than it used to be, which is very good indeed. And we now have experience for gathering professions, which is not too bad at all. Now, what is Blizzard's rationale? Well, they explained this very clearly and very accurately. Gathering professions slow down leveling, and they are as such unattractive. What they want is for people to level their gathering professions while leveling, as opposed to hit top level, then go back and power grind all of it. Now, there are a number of reasons why this is a good idea. For instance, in Cataclysm, think about how infuriating it would be as a low level, who, say, only has a standard speed mount, to have a guy on a 310% speed flying mount swoop down and steal your copper node because he decided he wanted to re-level something else today because it's flavor of the month. That's bollocks. So what you want to do is to try and discourage that. It's about encouraging people to level their gathering professions as they level up and take nodes that are appropriate to their level. So one would hope that you get a little bit less competition with the power levelers at level 85 just grinding all the way up there. What else? Well, again, they want to compensate for the point that a lot of people don't take gathering professions early on because they are a waste of time, often. You're talking about having to run away from your predefined path, as it were. You often have to go out of your way to actually find what you need, particularly in very busy areas. If you're going to do that, and if you're going to slow down your leveling, then you should be compensated for that. And that's exactly what they're doing right here. Now, some people might ask, well, Total Biscuit, why have they not done it with skinning? Well, I can give you a reason, because that would actually be the most overpowered, power leveling, ridiculous thing ever. Because you can skin most things, as opposed, you can't skin humans, but you can skin pretty much any type of beast and things like that. So you can skin an awful lot of mobs that you're going to be fighting. So what that means is you kill the mob, then you skin the mob, and suddenly you've got extra experience for doing nothing. And that's a couple of seconds as opposed to maybe 20 to 30 seconds running out of the way to get a node, and then running back to where you were supposed to be in the first place for killing your mobs. And that kind of sucks. So yeah, they shouldn't put that in. However, there is also the concept of leveling from secondary professions, and I wanted them to go a lot further. What I want them to do is to allow secondary professions to give you experience as well. I'm talking about gathering professions for that. If I spend time fishing, should I be getting experience for that? Yes. Should I be getting enough experience to get to level 85 entirely from fishing? No. And that's also the reason you can't get to level 85 entirely from mining or skinning or herbalism or whatever the hell else they want to attack experience onto. There are only two ways to really properly level in this game. One is PvE, the other is PvP. And that is entirely reasonable. Why is that entirely reasonable, you might ask? Well, it's entirely reasonable because you're talking about leveling from something that's going to train you for what you're doing at maximum level. So if you're a PvPer and you level entirely via PvP, it is totally cool for you to go do PvP. As to whether or not you should then go do PvE, well, that's a different matter entirely, but that's also up to the groups who are inviting you to begin with. And I'm sure you'll learn very quickly that people don't like it when people don't do their jobs properly. The same reason why people get frustrated in Battlegrounds when a bunch of PvEers that don't even understand the very principles of it go in there just to farm badges because they're very, very lazy or whatever. As it turns out, there will be some badges available from PvP in Cataclysm. Or at least their equivalent of badges at any rate. What about fishing, though? Well, yeah, that should get it. What about something like cooking? Well, here's the thing. Here's the divide. This is why getting experience from crafting is not necessarily a good thing. Because what you're basically doing there is buying experience. That's a terrible idea, because that encourages gold selling to ridiculous levels. You should not be able to buy experience points. So if I were to gain experience from making items, then that would kind of suck. As far as I'm concerned, if you're going to do that, you'd have to track it. You'd have to make sure that you gathered all of those things yourself, as opposed to bought them from the AH or anybody else. It would be like having BOP drops, only it would be a invisible tag. But stuff like archaeology, that's very time-consuming, and you absolutely should be getting leveling from that. Now, I'm probably going to stick with what I've always done, which is enchanting and something, whatever is beneficial at the time. I've got enchanting and jewel crafting right now, and I'll probably stick with that. It's a fairly high level, I've got good recipes, so why would I not stick with that? That would just be silly. I don't believe I should be getting experience from that. But I'm totally fine with people gaining experience from gathering. I mean, why wouldn't you be? The argument against this is this guy. That's the argument. It's crap. That's the best they can come up with. Honestly. and Blizzard's response to us is fairly suitable. The conversation taking place here is making me sad. That was the Blizzard response. They think you are dumb, and you are. You are so very, very dumb. So yes, gathering experience, bring it on, please. And let's have more implementation. Go back to my blog post, please, Blizzard, and go and at least have a look and just see what is so wrong with giving people experience for doing what they like doing. As long as they've got to put effort into it, and as long as it is actually helping them learn to be a better player, why the hell not? My name is Total Biscuit, and you are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. Sonata Arctica is probably one of the most popular bands we put on the stream, and I'm going to play some for you because it's awesome. Massive fan, as are a lot of people that listen.